Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Colwood, back with another Dark Shadows video. In every sense, this is, because I'm going to talk about why I use wrestling terminology when I'm talking Dark Shadows and its characters and sense. Because pro wrestling terminology, like getting the character over, the character going over, babyface, heel, pop, the audience popping, the audience cheering. That terminology applies to any franchise you're talking about, whether it's Dark Shadows, whether it's Doctor Who, whether it's The Prisoner, whether it's MASH, whether it's the Halloween franchise. You get what I'm saying. The list goes on and on. And here's what I mean by this. Okay, you often hear in interviews that the writers weren't sure where they were taking Barnabas. And though true, I often watch Dark Shadows. Maybe they didn't know exactly where they were taking him, but they had a lot of common sense to know what not to do. It's one thing to take a character like Maggie Evans and kidnap her, it's another to kill a beloved character off. If you have Barnabas kill off a character who's another babyface, another, protagonist, if you will, to use another word, then the game's afoot. The game's probably over because if he kills, not just bites, it's one thing for him to bite somebody. If he not only bites but then completely drains the blood of a human, killing them the way he did that calf, then we're not having this conversation. You're Because vampires, for the most part, have always been antagonists in shows and movies or heels. A babyface is a good guy character. A heel is a bad character. But every now and again, we hear a term that is probably used too often today, but wasn't used that often back in the 1960s. Maybe it was. I wasn't alive back then. Um, Shades of gray. A character is often shades of gray, meaning they're not exactly good, but they're not exactly full tilt heel bad. Like there's good and there's bad. You could refer to it as good angel, bad angel on your shoulder, or whatever terminology you want to use. But understand this. Though you have two consistent paths that are often chosen, either good or bad, there's a middle path. And that middle path is a very thin line of gray. And often enough times, writers will have a character walk that line. Was Barnabas walking that line? In some sense, yes. Okay, let's let's look at his when he's released from his coffin, more specifically. Let's look at his bite victims. Okay, a calf. So what? I mean that literally. Blaming Barnabas for killing a calf is like blaming Galactus for eating a planet. It's a necessary thing. He needs to feed. I've often talked about this with the character of Galactus. Is Galactus isn't evil. He's necessary. Um, he just is. Okay, he's neither good nor evil. He just is. Barnabas, for this moment right here, he just is. He's not good or evil. He's just here. He just is. He bites the calf, drains the calf of blood, so he's replenished some of his energy. He has Willie helping him get prostitutes, and he is biting them and most likely killing them. But those are prostitutes, right? Okay. We don't know them on a first name basis. We don't know much about them because they're not main characters. They're characters who are disposable. Now let's look at the main characters who surround Barnabas. There's everyone's current at that time current favorite protagonist, or babyface Victoria Winters. At that point in time, Victoria Winters is the most over babyface in Dark Shadows. You have Carolyn, who is a babyface but has also shown some heel tendencies. Now, Victoria has shown slight heel tendencies, but not full heel tendencies. We know Victoria Winters has lied before 1795. And you'll often hear the better the baby face, the bigger the heel. Even better so the heel. If you have a baby face, you can take that baby face and turn them heel, and the audience will appreciate it because they've never seen that before. And I do think they should have did that with Victoria Winters. Now, that's neither here or there, but keep in mind, you also have Joan Bennett's character, right? She's a baby face to a large degree, but she's also showed shades of gray and some heel tendencies. This is what I mean by heel tendencies. We know she's lied to Victoria Winters, okay? But she hasn't murdered anybody. She hasn't, physically tried to hurt somebody other than Paul Stoddard, and who wouldn't want to hurt Paul Stoddard? He's your heel. He's a heel, and so is Jason McGuire. He's a heel. He's a charming heel. He's what we would call, some people might call him a cool heel, but I don't. I don't think he's a cool heel. I just think he's very charming. There's a difference. Willie Loomis starts off a heel as a great example. We often think that Barnabas is. Why do we think Barnabas is heel? Is he a heel? No, he just is, right? Willie Loomis was a full-fledged heel. I mean, he was harassing the women. He pulled a knife out. He wants to kill Bert Devlin, who is a babyface. But the has showed some heel tendencies in the series. He's what I call the anti-hero of Dark Shadows. But at the same time, Burke Devlin is also over with the audience. By over, I mean we appreciate Burke as a character because of how Mitchell Ryan has played him. We like his character. We understand he's a man who gets things done. When you look at that, and he didn't bite any of these, he didn't drain them of their blood, he didn't kill any of these people, that helps with your audience because you then can't boo Barnabas. You can't say, oh, let them kill him off. You know what I mean? Now, how do the writers know if Barnabas is getting over? Is it just the ratings? Part of it's the ratings. Their real testament is what? The fan mail Jonathan Frid gets. They've talked about this. Jonathan Frid in an interview had said he thought he was getting his walking papers. He knew the character was only last a month, according to Dan Curtis, but you also hear the writers say they didn't know where they were taking him. And I do agree with both. I think you can have that kind of not, miscommunication where, well, I want to kill him off, but the writers may have looked here, well, do we? You know what I mean? The writers aren't sure whether they want to kill him off. You could have had that conflict, not necessarily conflict, and I'm not saying this is what went on, but you could have had where a writer and director don't always see the same thing when they're looking at a character. A writer could look at that character and go, I'm not so sure we should go that route, and may not write the character the direct way to turn him heel. By that I mean, what don't they do with Barnabas? They don't have him kill Victoria Winters. Not that they would, but you get what I'm saying. They don't have him bite her right away. He doesn't bite her until after he comes back to 1795, and by that time, he's a babyface. So there's almost no wrong he can do by that time. even biting Victoria. You're like, yeah, bite her and take her away. Take her away from all this. She's suffered enough, you know? The letters that Jonathan forgets, and not that I've seen them, but that lets the writers and Dan know what? Holy shit. Jonathan has this character over with the audience or an audience. And we have to lean into this character. Not that I'm not saying they weren't before that. I'm not saying they weren't using a character, but now they have to do more with the character, but not do so much more they overexpose the character. They need to build this character up now as a full-blown protagonist, as a babyface. He's been shades of gray, slightly heelish. His biggest heel thing he's done, let's look at it, kidnap Catherine Lee Scott's Maggie Evans. And when we examine that, now I'll get back to the letters, I promise, but because this ties into that. When we go back and watch those episodes of him kidnapping Catherine Lee Scott's character, excuse me, of him kidnapping Catherine Lee Scott's character, Maggie Evans, let's look at what he did. Okay, he terrorizes her. He shows a lot of antagonistic or heelish traits here. The dog's howling even before he bites her. Him now, her bringing his cane back to her. I don't really think that's antagonistic. That's just getting to see her again. But once he bites her and starts to try to transform her into Josette, at first we see this as maybe as heelish or antagonistic. Then he kidnaps her, which is an antagonist move, a heel move, right? You know, my buddy Patrick McRae asked me, did you feel sorry for Barnabas? And yes, I do. Here's why I feel you're getting two characters over at once with the writers. You're getting not just Maggie Evans over, even more so, but you're also getting Barnabas over in a certain way. Yes, you feel sorry for Maggie, who looks lovely in the Josette dress and coming down the staircase and all that. And David seeing her and stuff and her looking around. You love seeing her, right? You love that she looks like Josette. But you also feel that tad sorry for her because she's now not just a prisoner of Barnabas, but she seems to be a prisoner in her own mind because of Barnabas. Here's where to me, I felt sorry for Barnabas. I'm not here to speak for anybody else. I love that Catherine Lee Scott has the Josette's music box and says, I'm Maggie Evans, and slams it shut. That's getting the character of Maggie Evans back over. But you also watch Barnabas very carefully, and Jonathan Fred and the writers do something very, very special here. He could just simply, at any point in time, end her life. He gives her chances, but no, she refuses. Now, at that same time, we meet a ghost named Sarah Collins, played by actress Sharon Lynch. You have four key characters, really, here that play pivotal roles. John Collins, Willie Loomis, Barnabas, Jonathan Fred, Catherine Lee Scott's Maggie Evans, and Sharon Lynn's The Ghost of Sarah. By pivotal, here's where they're pivotal. We've seen what Barnabas has done to Willie. When he's crossed him, he beats him like a redheaded stepchild. Before Maggie goes free, before the escape, Willie is talking to Barnabas about not killing Maggie. You shouldn't kill her. you know. It's not what he's not doing. It's not just what he is doing, it's what he's not doing. He could just simply ignore Willie and go do it. He's not. He's standing there listening to him. Because now what you're seeing as an audience, or what I was seeing too, and I think the writers were realizing this at the time, and they had to be, was, and I think they realized this before too. They probably, I think they realized this right away, and I'll let you know where, because it's one of my favorite moments in Dark Shadows. When you have Barnabas listening to somebody he had no problem beating the shit out of, okay, now you have a character who has a conscience. The character has a conscience. But the character didn't just develop a conscience all of a sudden. He's always had it. Why do I say he's always had it? Well, let's look at episode 212, shall we? And now I'm going back, but this is all part of my deep point of heel, babyface, shades of gray, getting characters over, etc. This is how they, the writers, Jonathan and everybody they got this character over by having him not murder an innocent person, number one, by, yes, kidnapping an innocent girl, but not killing her, and not doing anything so dastardly to her either. He talks to her. You could tell Barnabas was what? In love with Josette. He wanted his Josette back. You can appreciate that. But you can also at the same time appreciate Maggie Evans saying she's not, because she's not. Now I'm going to go back to 212. Sorry for that long little segue. But here's 212. Barnabas meets his cousin David. David tells him about Josette and how if you're Collins, she'd help you. Because her ghost appears, he tells her. David leaves. He goes back to Collingwood, to the great house. Barnabas is standing in the drawing room of the old house. He looks up at Josette's portrait, and he says, I was a Collins. Where were you when I was turned to something even my own father loved? If his ghost is here with yours, tell him I am free now and alive. The chains in which he bound me with are broken. This is not a person who sounds angry. This is not a person who's screaming at the top of his lungs. What you really hear, and what I heard, was hurt. Barnabas, and I meant to make this point too in my Barnabas versus Victoria Winters. I can't remember if I did, I'm old. Barnabas did not expect to be standing here. Barnabas, as a character, as we're going to come to learn, expected to be literally dead. He expected his father, who was strong as oak itself, who was, not the nicest man, and would be strong enough to kill his own son. And Barnabas felt that his dad would be strong enough to kill him. His father did not kill him. And Barnabas asked him to kill him. Barnabas asked to be killed. Father, end my life. Kill, it lets you know the writers are completely getting Barnabas over by that point, because they're letting you know he did not make this choice to become a vampire, which we've been hinted at, prior to 1795. You can tell he's not wanting to hurt somebody, especially here. This all leads back to the episodes of him having Maggie. You could say, oh, he chokes her, but he doesn't kill her, and that's important. He also, in that time, is very aware of his powers. Keep in mind, Barnabas has had his powers well over 100 years. He didn't forget how to use them. Here's a woman who escapes through a secret passage that Barnabas is probably familiar with, and Barnabas makes no effort to use his vampire powers to disappear and reappear in front of her, to stop her. It's almost like he's wanting her to escape. And I do think subconsciously he did want her to escape. Oh, you can say he wanted her dead. Okay. How difficult, I get, what the writers wrote and stuff, that's fine. But when you look at it from a fictional sense and you sort of step back, okay, how hard would it have been really for Barnabas to kill two birds with one stone? Hoffman and uh, Maggie Evans. Wouldn't have been that hard at all. Because, she tells him, Barnabas Barnabas could go to two different places. We've seen it. We've seen him go to Dr. Woodard's office. So what's to stop him from going all the way to Bangor, Maine? It's not like it's in a different time zone. Come on, guys. This is what I mean. The writers are making a choice not to have him kill Maggie Evans because it's important to the character's development, not just who he does kill, but who he doesn't. Because we're walking the character down, they were walking down the character line, down a shades of gray. Yes, I've explained the kidnapping of Maggie is a bit heelish, but what doesn't he do to Maggie? He doesn't kill her. She goes free. Does he really stop her? No. Or make an attempt to stop her? If he does, he makes the most half-hearted attempt I've ever seen. Listen, I've watched The Great Escape. That was an attempt to stop people from escaping. But go watch the movie. What you have happen is now, okay, the character did not kill Maggie Evans. Maggie Evans has escaped. Everyone believes she's dead, but we know she's really not. I'm not going to go into down that road because the road I'm about to go down is what the writers do. Okay. Barnabas hasn't really killed off a main character yet. At that point in time, he had not killed off a main character. Who can we have him kill off to somewhat pop our audience and to get him somewhat over as even more of a sympathetic figure? Jason McGuire, come on down. You're the next. You're the first contestant on the murder block, Barnabas. And it's a smart choice. Think about this. Jason at that time is the most over heel in Dark Shadows, Dennis Patrick's character, and he did a great job. He's been exposed for what he is, a con man. He's been told to leave town. Nobody cares if he leave where he goes. Just go, get the hell out of here, and never come back. Instead of leaving, he goes to the old house. He goes down into the basement. He tells Willie, I want the jewels. I know they're in this coffin. No, he's in the coffin. And Willie's trying to tell him. And Jason won't listen. Jason opens up the coffin. And what does he get? A hand around the throat. And we do a little cutaway. And we see that Dennis Patrick's character, Jason McGuire, is dead. Now, Barnabas has killed an antagonist. You can say it's an antagonist. It's a heel killing another heel. But is it really? Or is it a character who's on that gray line, walking that gray line, who's now sort of starting to tilt into the babyface line? That's what I mean by getting a character over, too. The character is getting over with the audience. They know he's getting over with the audience eventually by the fan mail. Okay, they have to make a decision. Okay, we have not given this vampire character a victim, a true victim. Who can we give him? Jason McGuire. What's Jason McGuire? He's a con artist. He is a full-fledged heel. He's not walking down the shades of gray line. He's a heel. We have a character who's been walking this gray line, who's sort of not teeter-totter, not heel babyface. He's walked a gray line, but he hasn't murdered anybody innocent, so we still have him on that gray line. You may disagree with me, and I welcome you to, but I'm just telling you my perspective of it. Because it's not just about inaction, it's about the actions you do and don't do. Yes, I'm admitting he kidnapped Maggie Evans. I can't escape that he kidnapped Maggie Evans. But did he do anything really to stop her? By stopping her, did he use his vampire powers to disappear and reappear in front of her? We've seen him disappear and reappear. We've seen this character use his vampire powers. It's not like he forgot he had them. Again, it's all in what you do and don't do with the character. It's all in what you have. It's all about not just inaction, but the actions you take. But it's also about the choices of things you're not going to do, like kill a Maggie Evans. And yes, I get the writers wrote it, but Jonathan had to perform the act of things. He had to get the character over across the audience, and he did. I know this is a long-winded video, and I apologize. But once he kills Dennis Patrick's character, we have more of a tilt toward Barnabas. And we did have, like I talked about with him kidnapping Maggie, and I'm not trying to go back to that. Him talking to Willie, him listening to Willie, is letting him stopping to listen to Willie. You could say, well, he didn't think Maggie would escape. That's fine. But he's still making the conscious effort to stop and talk to Willie. That's his choice. That's the character's choice. Yes, it's the writer's writing it, but it's a character choice too, from a fictional sense. Remember, action in action. He's taking action by stopping and talking and listening to Willie. Here's a guy, like I said, there's a guy he beat like a redheaded stepchild. Why is he listening to him? Right? And we could get into the whole Ben Stokes thing if you want, but still, he's still listening to him. Now, Barnabas kills Jason. What's the next step? They introduce Dr. Julia Hoffman, who's fallen in love with Barnabas. She wants to try to cure him. He's rushing this cure because he wants Victoria Winters as the next Josette. But we realize we now have a woman, another woman in play, who's a bit jealous. It's beautiful, right? Now, does he try to kill Dr. Julia Hoffman? I mean, does he really? I mean, look. He comes to her room with the intent, right? But she doesn't leave. She doesn't go anywhere. She tells him that I can cure you. And him hearing this is what lets you know that he did not ask for this. Wait, you can cure me. Like, it's like a my God moment. You know what I mean? Like, oh my, I never thought I'd hear these words. And that even makes Barnabas more sympathetic than he already is. He's been sympathetic to a point, but now there's even more sympathy because you're coming into the realization as an audience, and I was when I first watched it at that moment. My God, this man did not ask for this. This is not Count Dracula. I've always talked about this. When did you realize Barnabas wasn't Dracula? Well, there are many moments, really, but this is a more of a cemented moment in time of Dark Shadows that you can now confirm this character is not Dracula. He's not Bela Lugosi's Dracula. He's not this blind, blood sucking vampire who's just out for the next victim. He's not that guy. And that is huge. The character that Jonathan got over to the audience and how they did it is all time amazing. I hope I've explained my terminology is good. But to sort of further cement this whole terminology business, there was a show Jonathan was on. What's My Line? They can't say the character's name. He writes Jonathan Frid, Barnabas. You hear the crowd start to pop, but by pop, get excited. That's what pop means. The audience is popping for the character. They got excited, right? They're screaming and starting to begin to cheer. Then they cheer when they show Jonathan. Then they're erupting in cheers. That's not just popping the audience. That's popping the audience and maintaining the pop, bringing it to a cheer. That shows you how over that character was. That's what I mean by over. He's over as a babyface. He's got the vampire fans, and they appreciate the man's character and what the man has done. I hope I've explained my terminology well. Now, is it the same thing for a heel? Heels, again, I've talked about this too. Dark Shadows didn't have a studio audience. A heel, for every good baby face you have, you need a better heel. You need a heel for your baby face to confront. And they gave Barnabas plenty enough heels. Count Patofe, Judas Zachary, Leviathan. They gave him a number of heels. Angelique, he married Angelique. So, I hope I've explained my terminology well. You all have a lovely, lovely day, and take care.